Ngoba phela nginodlebe kuthiwa akuxatshenwe mawubaboni. Ningathi nizwe ngami, ngathi nizwe ngami. Uyazi into engizwile iyesabisa. Ninkalisilwele inkuloko sasilwela abacindezeli la. Kuthiwa umholi wabo ufuna ukuya kule organization okuthiwa wakwayizwa loo nto labantu owalwa inkululeko wayithatha kubo usuyayibuyisela kuwo futhi izwe lonke. Ukhona-ke bathi hey asiyilapho asiyilapho. Ngithi uMhamzwana beza kimi ngothi nasuka lapha nje nanithi niyaphi. Kodwa kasibiyeke lokho. Bengidlula nje ngendlela lapho ngalokhuzi. Into esemqoka ke ukuthi njengoba sathi ngeke siyivotele iANC sovotela umkhonto wesizwe sikwenzile lokho.
South Africa's political movements claim to fight for the liberation of the marginalized, but the infighting and insults among us are only distracting from the real enemy. If we were serious about emancipation, we must unite, not divide. Greetings everyone, it's Kondos here from Inkarhi Its Time. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into something that's been bothering me for a while. Political movements in South Africa, especially those advocating for the liberation of the marginalized, are tearing themselves apart with infighting, insults, and toxic rivalries. We've seen this recent with the fallout between Floyd Shivambu and the economic freedom fighters, EFF. But here's the bigger issue. This division is preventing real progress for Black South Africans. So, let's break it down and explore why it's time to focus on unity, stop the personal attacks, and channel our energy into the fight for true emancipation.
Us together. There's no point to go again to whether it's local elections or national elections. 80, 90 parties, black people with different t-shirts, confusing the electors, saying the same things, but because we don't want to submit to one another, this one has ego, or this one maybe is ideologically, you believe that, and he said, forget ideology, because that has always been used to divide blacks. We can find our unity and then figure out, these are the issues we want to solve. Land, economy, people don't have jobs, women issues, etc. What is the best way to solve it? Forget ideology, because that's not going to put bread on our people's table. How are we going to put policies to solve this?
We all know the battle for black emancipation is difficult. There are forces, both inside and outside the country, that want to maintain the status quo. But what if we could focus on our collective energy, on working together rather than tearing each other down? Political movements like the EFF, MKP, and others claim to be fighting for the marginalized. But recent events show us that infighting and personal attacks are weakening their credibility. Instead of uniting behind a common cause, we are seeing people within the same movements turn on each other. This is not only self-destructive, but it's also a gift to those who benefit from us divided. Take the recent drama surrounding Floyd Shivambu's departure from the EFF. While the MKP has welcomed him, the EFF has been attacking him, insulting him publicly, and even dismissing media platforms that give him a voice. What does this really achieve? Nothing. These petty fights distract us from the real enemy, the system of inequality that keeps the marginalized oppressed. If we continue to focus on each other's flaws rather than the broader struggle, we will never win the fight for justice and liberation. Another issue that has been highlighted in recent months is the growing elitism in movements that claim to represent the people. Expensive fundraising events where the leaders are treated like celebrities send a strong message that the struggle for liberation is only for the wealthy. This creates a huge disconnect between the leadership and the people they claim to represent. If we were serious about liberation, the focus must be on the people, not the pockets of the elites. Sizwe Mpofu-Walsh recently made a powerful observation. EFF supporters are so caught up in self-righteousness that they are alienating potential allies and partners. He rightly points out that the EFF can't keep blaming everyone else for its problems. If you keep alienating others, you'll soon find yourself alone, talking to an empty room. The political landscape needs cooperation, not constant division.
Let's come to the EFF. And I want to say this, and I hope that EFF, some people in the EFF and EFF members are listening to this, because again, to bring it back to the podcast briefly, it's quite sad for me to see that there are some people in the EFF who have fallen for this idea that just because MK people accept my invitations to do interviews, and indeed often sometimes break news on the channel, that I am somehow only inviting MK guests onto this platform, and that I'm trying to pursue some kind of MK agenda, or worse, I'm trying to destroy the EFF with this podcast, right? That's just petty, naive, and unfair. Many people in the EFF will know that I constantly invite EFF leaders onto SMWX, but what is sad to me is that ever since I interviewed Floyd, EFF has decided not to come onto my podcast. And I'm hoping it's just a short-term thing. I understand that the party is like, there are a lot of people who are angry with Floyd and I brought him on, and therefore they transfer that onto me. But I don't get this idea that because I interview people from MK, that I am some kind of MK mouthpiece. The irony is I was always accused of being an EFF mouthpiece. And because I had one interview with Floyd, now suddenly I'm an MK mouthpiece. The EFF they boycott ENCA and the mainstream, and sometimes they don't like Newsroom. And I've seen them say that SABC is now an MK platform, and then they can't also boycott digital media because there'll be no media left. No media will always be full of praise for any one political party, but that doesn't mean you then boycott the platform or whatever. So I'm confident EFF will come back on SMWX. I'll keep inviting them. But this is one thing that I would say. MK has figured out the power of digital media. And this platform and many other great podcasts that there are in South Africa, whether we talk about Dan Corder, whether we talk about the Hustlers Corner, DJ Spoo, Convo, all those platforms that are just have MacG, obviously that's in a more culture space. But if you are continuing to ignore the power of these platforms, then you're living in a bygone, dead era, right? If you're running onto all these mainstream platforms that don't really get the views they're used to, that people are tuned out of, then you haven't figured out how to communicate in this part of the 21st century. So MK Party, what I will give them credit for is they figured out the power of this platform and many other platforms. And so when I invite people, they come. So, and I'm not going to stop inviting people from MK either. Why? Because the public wants to know what they think. And every time I do MK content, it gets lots of views, which is my viewers telling me that they want to keep watching that kind of content. So that's what's happened here, is that I invite people from every party, continue to invite DA, ANC. I'm actually glad, big ups to the ANC, because they seem to have figured out to come as well, and many ANC people are now coming onto the podcast. I think they've realized the reach of digital media in South Africa now. And I'll continue to invite EFF, but I've gotten to the point where if you don't want to come onto the platform, it's now your loss and not mine. And I'll continue to invite everyone, but I'm just going to keep doing the interviews.
Here's the hard truth. We can't afford to keep fighting amongst ourselves. Black liberation is a shared goal. Whether you support the EFF, the MKP, or any other political group fighting for the rights of the marginalized communities, the end goal must always be the same: total emancipation. If we focus on the petty insults and rivalry, we will lose sight of what really matters: achieving freedom, dignity, and equality for all.
I actually get to learn a lot from him in terms of a proper contextualization of the political developments, and generally on how we conduct ourselves as activists. So even that, like part of the issues which we actually get to learn, and just to emphasize this, is that he says that even upon extreme provocation, we should never degenerate to want to be insulting people and saying all sorts of bad things about other people. That give yourself time to listen to people much more attentively, whether they say wrong things about you and everything else, but you must always pay attention to what the people say. So that is what we learn from President.
Okay, finally, Floyd, before you go, so when you look back, you think with where you are now and the role you're going to be playing, and the relationship you have, as you've described, with the former President Jacob Gedlehle Zuma, you think you made the right decision to leave the EFF at this time?
The decision to join Kondos was the best decision ever. It was the most correct decision, and it's the most correct decision that I've ever taken in my life. And even the decision to leave the EFF was the most correct decision to do so in this particular moment. And it's one decision that history will illustrate that was the best decision in terms of what will happen.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. That's Floyd Shivambu.
So here's my call to action for all of you watching. Stop the insults. Stop tearing down fellow human beings just because they don't agree with you. Instead, channel that energy into action. Focus on unity and meaningful participation in the fight for liberation. We need all hands on the deck if we were going to break the chains of oppression and build a future where every black South Africans can thrive. If you believe in this vision, like this video, share it with your friends and family, and leave a comment below about how we can push for unity in the fight for total emancipation. Together, we can make a real difference. Thank you for watching. And remember, in unity, there is strength. Let's work together for a better tomorrow. Stay tuned for more discussion on social justice and the road to true freedom. Until next time, peace and power. Take care.